Hey, Scott Menzel is back for episode 38 of Black Tomatoes here at Black Hollywood Live. We're talking about Green Book. Is it the white savior movie of the award season? We don't know. Find out in a minute. So this music, you guys, that's playing is from the Wreck-It Ralph soundtrack. I'm not quite sure who it is, but I just like the beat. So there you go. And there's that. Oh my goodness, we are back. We are back. I am your host, Carla Renata, here at Black Tomatoes on Black Hollywood Live. We're going to talk about a little Green Book. We're going to talk about a little Favorite. We're going to talk about the Spirit Award nominations. And we're going to discuss maybe, what might be coming up for the SAG nominations as well. But before we get to all of that. Oh, and in addition to that, of course, we have our segments that we usually do, the Movieversary of the week and the streaming pick of the week. But before we get to all of that, let me introduce you to my co-host, who is
Scott Menzel. Happy to be back. Carla, do you miss me when I'm gone? Do you miss me? I
actually do miss you because people don't give me a hard time when you're not here.
Everyone's just like, yeah, Carla, it's your show.
People don't give me a hard time when you're not here. So listen, you guys, if this is your first time joining us at Black Tomatoes, please pop over to YouTube and join us there for the discussion. We have a chat room up and I can talk to you and see you and all that good stuff. Give us a rating over there. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the show. Go over to iTunes. Give us 5 stars there. And then also pop on over to Spotify and give us some love there as well. All right. How was your week?
It was a busy week.
Yeah.
It was also a very busy weekend as well. I mean, I went to the A24. The holiday season is upon us here in Hollywood.
Right.
And Carla and I both went to the Fox Searchlight party last night.
Yes.
I went to the A24 one on Friday. I also went to a Friendsgiving earlier yesterday.
Friendsgiving. Do tell about that.
Our dear friend Dimitri from Meet the Movie Press invited me and Ashley over to his home, and we had a little Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving, as he likes to call it. And we did that right before. It was we had a good time. It was just we only went for a few hours, but because we had the Fox party afterwards. But it was nice. It was just a whole nice weekend, and I'm usually. Yeah, the weekends are usually low key for me. Like you, we do screenings every single day of the week, so the weekends is usually my time to like veg out and just relax. But this week I was like really busy, all throughout the week and for the weekend.
All right, well look at you.
Yeah.
It was a fairly busy week for myself as well. With award seasons coming, we're starting to get the award screeners for a lot of the films that we need to vote on for our organization, the Los Angeles Online Film Critics Society, and my other organization, the African American Film Critics Association. So it's like,
I know.
But it's all good. It's all good. So let's start talking about the first film this week. It's a Disney film.
Okay.
Ralph Breaks the Internet. It's the sequel to Wreck-It Ralph. And this time, Ralph and his friend Vanellope, who are both voiced respectively by John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman, they find themselves in a situation where Vanellope's steering wheel on her game has broken, and they decide that they're going to go to the internet to try to get her another steering wheel, and shenanigans ensue as usual.
Pretty much.
But it is I've said here a million times, I love Disney. I love how Disney tells a story for the most part. I particularly like Ralph Breaks the Internet because it's animating the internet, and I don't think that's been done up until now, really.
Only the Emoji Movie, but nobody wants to talk about
that. But
that
was emojis. This is like
nobody wants to talk about that in general, though.
I'm ignoring you. I'm ignoring you on purpose.
Yeah.
That's the whole, but this is the whole internet, and it's populating the internet with different types of people, and, they're making fun of some of the things that exist. Like BuzzFeed is kind of like... not BuzzTube is supposed to be like a combination of like BuzzFeed and YouTube.
Yeah.
So they're making fun of a bunch of things. I really enjoyed the film, and my favorite part of the film before we get to you is the princess scene, which we're going to roll a small little clip for you to listen and watch right now.
Hi. Whoa, ladies, I'm a princess, too.
What kind of a princess are you?
Do you have magic hair?
No.
Magic hands?
No.
Do animals talk to you?
No.
Were you poisoned?
No.
Cursed?
No.
Kidnapped or enslaved?
No. Are you guys okay? Should I call the police?
Do people assume all your problems got solved because a big, strong man showed up?
Yes. What is up with that?
She is a princess.
I love this scene so much because all of the Disney princesses are in it. It is one of the highlights of the film, and P.S. and FYI and spoiler alert and all that. They got all of the original Disney princesses to voice themselves for this segment in the movie. So I was living when I saw that when Cinderella breaks off that glass slipper. I laughed out loud. That was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I'm like, okay, Cinderella's gonna drop kick somebody now. It was just so funny. They also introduced a new character in this sequel, yes, who's voiced by Taraji P Henson. Love her. You guys know her from Empire as Cookie, and I think she was in Baby Boy with John Singleton.
Not to mention Hidden Figures.
Hidden Figures. She's got a enormous body of work, and this is the first time she's animating a character. And at the press conference, which we were both at, she said, "Oh, done voice a Disney character, check that off the list." So it was really great. What are your thoughts about it?
I it's funny you showed the princess scene, because I think the princess scene is going to be one of the most talked about scenes of this year. I think everyone who's going to see this movie is going to fall in love with that sequence, and it's just going to be, when it comes out on Blu-ray, people are going to replay that scene over and over and over again. What's interesting to me, I was not that big a fan of the first Wreck-It Ralph. Mm-hmm. I did grow up playing video games, but I just felt like that was really made for like such fanboys of video games. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of disappointed with it, and I didn't have that high of expectations going into this one. And I really loved this one, and I thought it was so much better than the first one because it was kind of about everyone, and the story about what was it? Being sensitive, being too insecure with one another,
being insecure about yourself,
yeah.
and being insecure about your friendships, because we all and that was a really important lesson for kids, because with friendships it's a very touchy situation, because you will meet people that will be your friends for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, straight up. The people that are there for a lifetime, that's great. The ones that are there for a reason and a season sometimes hurt the most, because you think they're going to be around for a lifetime and then they end up not being due to whatever circumstances happen. And in this film, I think that Ralph and Vanellope both think that their friendship has ended because of some things that happened in the course of the story being told. And at the end of the day, they found out that their friendship can withstand anything, and that it's more important than anything else.
I like also how the movie, the first movie is very much all about Ralph. Like, it's all about his setting up him, worrying about him. And in this movie, it's completely flipped, where Vanellope is the character we're getting behind. We get to see a little bit more about her, how she gets, bored with the lifestyle that she's living. And then in a weird way, Ralph becomes the villain because of his own insecurities.
Exactly.
And I really admired that about this film, because this is done by the same guys who did Zootopia.
Yes.
And Zootopia took so many risks. And I feel the same way about this one. This one did some nice risk taking, and I love when Disney goes a little bolder than I expect them to go, and this and Zootopia are two perfect examples of that.
Yeah. So the only thing about Ralph Breaks the Internet that I didn't like,
yeah, I know this.
They have this giant, for lack of a better way to explain it, it looks like King Kong made of like thousands and thousands and thousands of Ralphs, which skeeved me out beyond belief. I don't know why it skeeved me out, but it just kind of it skeeved me out in the same way I was skeeved out when I watched the Nutcracker and they had the Mouse King. It was the same kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, I could have lived my whole life without seeing that.
I kind of enjoyed that scene in this movie.
Of course you did, because you're a guy. Guys like that kind of stuff.
Well, not only that, it was almost like a weird homage to King Kong and the whole idea of this monster having to save the princess kind of thing.
Okay, I'll let you have that, but ooh, I was like, oh, I could have lived my whole life without seeing that. I kept turning my head away, hoping it would be over, and I would look back. I'm like, yep, still going on. Okay, looking away again. It felt like it was never ever going to end, and I was so sad.
What did you think of Gal Gadot?
I liked her voicing that character. I didn't realize it was her until after the fact, which was kind of cool. I was like, oh, that was Gal Gadot. Okay, cool. I didn't. I noticed her accent a couple of times, but it wasn't as prominent as I would have thought it would be for her to voice a character.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed her. I enjoyed her a lot.
I thought she was a good addition, another strong female character to play off of Vanellope. So it really worked. And there was that's what I love about sequels is when they actually build upon something. Mm-hmm. And this one did a really great job of showing like, okay, so there's stuff outside of this games and these games that you know. There's a whole new universe out there. There's all these new characters. And I just really loved that. And I love just the jokes like with the spam guy and all that stuff. It was great.
Yep. So as we said, Ralph Breaks the Internet is produced by Disney and opens this week just in time for Thanksgiving. So you guys should go check that out. All right. Now this film, I gotta say, I spent 3, maybe 4 hours at an event arguing, fussing, and fighting over this film we about to talk about.
Okay.
Green Book. And this is what we fought about. So there's a young journalist that I know that
I know her too.
That works for an outlet, a very prominent African American online outlet, and she and I were arguing over the fact that when she saw the film, and the film we're speaking of is Green Book, when she saw Green Book, she felt like Green Book was the white savior film of the award season, very much in line with like Driving Miss Daisy. She felt like it was poorly titled because it's called the Green Book, and they address the Green Book for like 5 seconds in the whole movie. She felt like she just felt like the story could have been told a different way, and that the title needed to be something else other than Green Book if you're not going to address the actual Green Book. So for those listening, the Green Book is a book that was established for African Americans all over this country during the segregation times, where it was like whites only and colored only. It was a book that provided African Americans with establishments where they could eat and where they could stay overnight if they needed to stay overnight, as opposed to sleeping on the road, because that just never is a good idea, especially if you're in the Deep South. So her and I fought and fought and fought. And the reason we fought is because I respect what she said. I can see how she came to that conclusion. But in my opinion, it was a film more about humanity and racism. She also had issues with the fact that it was told from the white character's point of view. And I said, well, to be fair, it's told from the white character's point of view because one of the co-producers and one of the screenwriters is Tony Lip's son. So yeah, it's told from his point of view because his son is writing the screenplay. Dr. Shirley didn't have anybody there to tell his point of view, right? So for those of you that do not know what the film Green Book is about, which opens on Thanksgiving, it is about this concert pianist who's an African-American man named Dr. Don Shirley, who decides he wants to do a tour of the Deep South and he needs somebody to drive him. He decides upon this really racist Italian dude from the Bronx named Tony. I'm going to call him Tony V or Tony Lip because his name is a little difficult to pronounce and I don't want to butcher it. But these two end up getting together. The most profound scene in that whole movie to me was at the beginning of the film, when there are some black servicemen coming in to do some repairs in Tony Lip's apartment. His wife offers them some lemonade. These two men drink out of the lemonade. His wife puts the lemonade glasses in the sink, these 2 gold tumblers, and she comes back in the kitchen for whatever reason and sees these same 2 tumblers that she had put in the sink in the trash can. That scene, right, and there was no dialogue about why these tumblers were in the trash can. There was no scene to address it, but to me that was one of the most powerful scenes in the film because it unequivocally showed you how deep-rooted racism was in this country, to the point where this man would rather see these 2 tumblers in a trash can than have somebody wash them out and him drink out of them. That wore me out. The one, I feel like Viggo Mortensen's performance was really good because it was written to all his strengths. So there's that. I feel like Mahershala Ali gave a solid performance, but he didn't have a lot of screen time. He was really good for the screen time that he had, but I think the 2 of them together made a really good on-screen team. I feel like the one thing I didn't like was there's a scene that addresses Dr. Shirley's homosexuality. The way it was addressed, I really didn't care for. I feel like that could have been addressed in a very different way. I'm sure that boy's father has some other stories about Dr. Shirley and some situations that he may have found himself in, that Tony Lip may have found himself in with Dr. Shirley, that address him being homosexual. I felt like that was not it, and it was offensive to me, and I didn't like it. So that's how I feel about it.
Okay. I'm glad you brought this up. I want to first say that I do respect that person's point of view on this. I understand where she's coming from. What I want to add to this is that I was sort of upset by this whole article just because of the fact that I feel like this movie's trying to do some good, like you pointed out, but also there's a lot of information that's being left out in that article, and the main thing that's being left out in that article is the fact that Dr. Shirley requested that this movie was made after his passing, and that he was not to be involved in the film or the project in any way because he was a very private person, as shown in the film, and that he didn't want any of this information to get out. So with that being said, all the stuff that was given to them was, as you pointed out, from Tony Lip's son, Nick, who was a screenwriter on this film as well as a producer. There was audio tapes of Dr. Don Shirley, which is what Mahershala studied and listened to, as well as any like newspaper clippings and articles that he could find. And from what I interviewed both Viggo and Mahershala, as well as Peter and Nick, and every single one of them said that everything that you see in this film is fact. It's stuff that happened, and even the stupid scene where he folds up the pizza and shoves it in his mouth.
I'm not negating that it's not fact, and I don't think the young lady that wrote the article is negating that it's fact either. What she is negating, I'll address what she's negating because I know her. Yeah. What she is negating is the fact that the title of the film is called Green Book. If you're going to title a film called Green Book, then it needs to be about the Green Book. When you title a film called, it's like when they titled the film Marshall, and you go to, I'm just saying.
No, I know.
When you title the film,
title
a film Marshall, and people expect to go see a movie where you think you're going to see a biopic about Thurgood Marshall, and what you see is
a Josh Gad movie,
or a movie that addresses a very profound case of Thurgood Marshall and gives you the highlights of his life, which is also happening with On the Basis of Sex. Like if you're going to do a film, but to On the Basis of Sex's credit, at least they named the film after, giving you the impression that it was about a case and not specifically about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I'll give them a pass for that. But when you have a film called Green Book, people that lived in the South during that time, or people that live in the South now that know what that is, black, white, or otherwise, they're expecting to go see a film about the Green Book. That's not what they're seeing. They're seeing a film about these 2 men that have a relationship despite their differences in taste, in humanity, just in everything. They have a difference of opinion. At the end of the day, they come together in spite of the fact that they're different. And that, to me, was the beautiful part of the film. So that's where I disagree. And that's why I started out by saying what I saw was a film about racism and how prevalent it is and was, and a film about humanity, because this man went from throwing 2 glasses in a trash can over somebody black that drank out of him to inviting somebody of color to his house on Christmas Day.
And I feel like they both, like throughout the movie, they both learned from one another. And it wasn't so much that the character, it's funny because you mentioned racism, and racism is still very much alive today, which is why I think a film like this works so well. But, I don't know if the character of Tony in the movie was purposely racist. I feel like he was.
I disagree.
Yeah, I feel like he was more just, I don't know, unaware of culture. Like, and it was funny because certain scenes. For example, there's a funny chicken scene, and then there's a more serious chicken scene later in the movie, and I feel like the tone of those scenes are wildly different. And it's the one scene, it just shows how ignorant he is and how like naive he is and how he's following like what he thinks is a racial stereotype. And then he gets kind of like thrown in his face that like, no, that's not the way we all are. And then there's this different scene where they go to a party and they announce that they're going to be making chicken because of course Dr. Shirley has to like it. And that has a different message there. And you can see that scene is just downright racist.
I can respect what you said about that, but I will say that because I lived in New York for as long as I lived in New York, and because one of my really close friends is Italian, and because I'm just saying one of my really close girlfriends on the face of the planet is Italian and Puerto Rican, and that doll, some of her friends, they're like Tony Lip and his friends. That's what they are. Because I mean, especially in New York City. Yes. In New York City, there is a real, true seated hatred when it comes to Italian Americans and Black people. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where it started. I don't even know why it started. But when I tell you, especially during that time, Black white people, because look at Bensonhurst.
Yeah.
Bensonhurst is like the most largely populated Italian American borough in the city of Manhattan, right? And they hate Black people there. I don't even know why. Like they call us stuff like eggplant and mooly and all these different racial slurs, and they do that in the film. Now, him being ignorant does not excuse him from being racist, because he still put them 2 tumblers in that trash can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that doesn't make him any better than the people that he's around. What happens during the course of that film and during the course of this road trip that he takes with Dr. Shirley is he learns that his behavior is ignorant, that is unfounded, is biased, and that he's wrong. He learns that he's wrong.
Yes.
And that at the end of the day, Dr. Shirley is a man who is gay, that is supremely talented, and doesn't have a whole lot of friends. And he made a conscious decision, I'm going to be this dude's friend. He's driven me through the snow so that I could get to my family on Christmas Eve. Who does that?
Right.
So, I mean, this is a good thing, because this is what I love about, I'm about to get emotional. This is what I love about talking about film. When you have a film that is released that incites this type of discussion, it's a really good thing, because it brings to light things in this country that people shove under a rug and don't want to talk about because it's uncomfortable. But movies and the way that the art attacks a situation like this makes it okay for people to have that discussion. So props to Octavia Spencer and the producers of the film, Tony Lip's son Nick and Farrelly and all these other people that helped make the film. Kudos to them for making a film that's inciting this discussion, which regardless of what side of the controversy you're on or you want to stick with or believe, whatever the case is, I'm happy that it's inciting the discussion, because the discussion needs to happen.
Yeah.
And that I applaud, and that I'm grateful for. And P.S. and FYI, the audience that I watched the film with, it was a mix of people it was a mix of critics, it was a mix of people's families, it was a mix of the people in the film, the studio. And when I tell you, folk were loving this movie. I love the movie. I'm not saying I don't love the movie. like I said, the only thing in that movie that I didn't like was the way they addressed his homosexuality, because I firmly believe, and I probably know for a fact, that there was something else that happened on that road trip. Trust me when I tell you, that is not the only incident that happened on that road trip. All the months they were on the road, come on.
Yeah.
There was another situation that happened that could have been spoken about, but I believe they chose that one for dramatic purposes, but it was just the way it was done that I had a problem with.
Interesting.
You know, I just didn't like the way it was done. It was dehumanized. If I felt like it dehumanized his character when that happened.
I felt like, but see, this is interesting because I disagree with you on this. Because
That's fine.
The reason why I disagree with you is because like this whole entire movie shows, and it's funny because the whole movie is about the Green Book, even though it's not going page by page and explaining it. It's showing that he has to be left at a certain hotel, or he has to go into a certain restaurant, and then he goes in that one bar where he's not supposed to go, and then Tony has to come in and help him out. Like there's elements of it, and they explain it just enough where it's not beating you over the head and like explaining and reading it. You get an idea of what it is, and through this journey you see it. But the scene that you're talking about is that Dr. Shirley was very private, and he was not a fan of attention. He was not a fan of making a debate or making a scene. Anytime conflict arose in this film, it was always shown that he wanted to take the higher road, even though it was against what he how he felt and how Tony felt. He always wanted to take the higher road. So when it addressed the subject matter of his homosexuality, I felt back in that period, bathhouses were very, very, that was a way that, people who had homosexuality kind of snuck around. And he was a private person, so therefore he went into that facility, and that, I felt like that would be something that someone like himself would have done.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm not saying that he wouldn't do it. What I'm saying is, I'm sure there are other situations that went down other than that, that could have been dramatized. That's what I'm saying.
But there's so much other stuff in this movie that I didn't think that the focus of this was not going to be about his homosexuality.
I'm not saying that.
They just wanted to show a different side.
I get that, Scott, but that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not. Maybe I'm not explaining myself properly. All I'm saying is, the only scene in the entire picture that I personally had an issue with was that scene, because I felt like there was another instance, another situation that may have happened that addresses his sexuality that was not a bathhouse scene. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that, and that's all I'm saying. As far as the Green Book is concerned, I'm saying that I'm not saying that they need to beat you over the head with the Green Book, but it's like I said before, if you're going to name a film Green Book, then the film need to be about the damn Green Book. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were elements of it thrown here and there. Like him being in that bar didn't have anything to do with the Green Book. You know what I mean? He just went to the nearest bar. That wasn't one of the bars listed in the book that he was supposed to go to. The Green Book is a book that tells you specifically where, as an African American, you can go where there are no white people so you won't get in trouble. So the fact that he was in this bar with white people, right, where he wasn't supposed to be, meant that was the bar closest to where he was. The only time they ever seriously addressed the actual Green Book in the film is when Dr. Shirley told him about the book, told Tony Lip, him meaning Tony Lip, told Tony Lip about the book, gave him the book, and showed him where he needed to find some place to stay hotel-wise. And then what do? They show them these hotels. Now, I know for a fact that some of these hotels that were listed in the Green Book were not, dives on the side of the road. Some of them were actually very nice establishments. I just feel like when they showed it in the film, they made it look like that all of these, not all of these, but they gave the impression, let me say that. They gave the impression that all of these establishments that people go to stay overnight on the road, like a Dr. Shirley, are like these really horrible hotels that, you wouldn't want your mama to stay in, let alone you. So I actually agree with my colleague on.
Yeah.
That I agree with her on. Because I didn't even think about it until she brought it to my attention. I was like, oh snap, really? that's a good point. But then when she brought up the white set, I'm like, I don't see that. And what's really interesting is I'm so glad we were able to have this discussion today, because what's really interesting is I ran into a lot of other black journalists, and a lot of black journalists are saying that, oh, this is the white savior driving Miss Daisy of the season. And they have issues with the picture showing Dr. Shirley sitting in the back car. I don't have no problem with the picture. Like I said, the only problem I had is with that one scene. I like the movie. So let it be known, I like the movie, okay? I like Green Book. I'm a fan of the film. I'm a fan of Viggo Mortensen. I'm a fan of Mahershala Ali. I'm a fan. I'm not saying I don't like the movie. I like the movie. But if I'm going to sit here and critique the movie, then I need to say, the good with the bad.
Yeah.
And, which is new for me, because usually I don't.
No, I love.
Usually I'm sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops.
This is like the best episode. You literally. Not only did we disagree, we went back and forth this episode, and you were able to really no, this is why I don't like this, Scott. Here you go. And I appreciate that, because yes, that's what I want to see you do more often. I love that. Thank you, Carla.
Well, I don't always feel that passionate about movies, but I felt passionate about this.
Yeah.
All right, so
Can we talk about the one scene, though, real quick?
Yeah.
That one scene where where they stop on the side of the road and there's the slave field.
Oh, yeah.
That is such a great
That's a
scene,
very powerful scene.
Yeah.
That was a very powerful scene. So the scene that he's speaking of, and this won't spoil anything for you guys, there's a scene where I think they end up with a flat tire or something, and Tony Lip has to change the tire, and Dr. Shirley's sitting in the back seat of the car. Directly across the road from them are some black sharecroppers picking cotton. And nobody says a word. Dr. Shirley doesn't say anything. Tony Lip doesn't say anything. None of the black people on the other side of the road say anything. But the sharecropping, cotton-picking black people stop in their tracks because they see this black man that's being driven in a really nice-looking car by a white man, and he's sitting in the back seat.
Yeah.
So they're looking at him like, well, damn, I haven't seen that before. Maybe there's hope for us yet. That's what I got from that scene.
Yeah, me too. It was a really
thank
powerful
you for bringing
scene.
that
Yeah,
up.
it was a really powerful
It was
scene.
a very powerful scene. Oh, child, now we got to squeeze everything in because I done ran my mouth talking about daggone Green
No,
Book.
it's okay. It's okay. It was good.
All right, so
I loved it.
So the next film is this film called The Favorite. I love this movie so much. Love it, love it, love it. I love it so much because it's just... I love period films.
I know.
I love period piece films. And then I really love period piece films where the actors in it are just at the top of their game. So we got Olivia Colman, we got Rachel Weisz, and we got Emma Stone, and they are letting us have it. I want you guys just to hear a sneak peek to understand why I'm in love with this movie.
It's an extraordinary person.
They were all staring, weren't they? I can tell even if I can't see, and I heard the word fat, and ugly.
No one but me would dare, and I did not. She's been stalked by tragedy.
Everyone leaves me, dies.
I love this movie. It's so freaking funny. It's just.
I hope I might be employed here by you.
You can. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you talk about it first, and then I'll talk about it.
I saw this at Telluride, and I mean, this was a welcome surprise. I mean, for how many period piece movies there are, year after year, they're very formulaic. It's a lot of the same old, same old. This one is bold. It's daring. It's sort of offensive in a couple ways.
It's hilarious.
But it's really hilarious, and it's so dark. And I love that element about this. Emma Stone in this role, it's like every time I see her on screen, she's playing something different, and this is another phenomenal role. Olivia Colman is fucking... Oh, I'm not supposed to curse.
That's all right.
Freaking
It slipped out.
fantastic. She is freaking fantastic in this movie, and so is Rachel Weisz. Rachel Weisz, of course, has been in a lot of movies like this before, but this is a much darker role for her. Just, I love the costume design of this film. I love the way that it's shot. I love the dark and sinister satire humor that's in it. It's unlike any period piece movie you've seen before, and that's why I feel bad for Mary Queen of Scots, because there's no comparison.
Yeah, I mean, Olivia Colman as Queen Anne is hilarious. Oh my God, there's a few reasons I'm excited. I agree with everything that you said. This is I'm so excited. So, first of all, it is a period piece feature film that is centered around a bunch of women.
Yes.
Which normally is usually centered around a bunch of
guys,
men.
yep.
And the women are kind of like ancillary characters. So I'm like, yay, girl power. And the three leads are throughout the entire film. Like the men are kind of like footnotes.
Secondary,
The men are kind of like footnotes in this movie. And Rachel Weisz, I see all three of these women playing characters that I've never seen them do before.
Yeah.
And I apologize, ladies, if you have, but honey, I didn't see them, but I saw this and I saw you. And I think that all three of these women are gonna get major love when nominations start coming out. I don't think any of them are going to be slighted, and if they are, I'm going to be really sad because that would be a tragedy.
I think it's going to be the interesting thing about this is that they're pushing, I think, Olivia Colman for lead actress, which is strange to me because I think Emma Stone should be getting lead and she should be getting supporting. I am worried about Rachel Weisz being completely
but she was fabulous.
I know she was, but I mean, the categories and if they have to pick between, I think they're going to push Emma over her.
Well, that sucks.
That's it. But I mean, I agree. I mean, and this director, Yorgos Lanthimos, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
See, I don't attack people's names until I find out how to pronounce them.
No, it's all right. He did Killing in the Sacred Deer, and then he did The Lobster. He makes some odd movies. But this is probably my second favorite of his, and I think he's a bizarre man, but I love his mind.
I didn't enjoy The Lobster, but I enjoyed the hell out of this.
I didn't like The Lobster either.
I did not enjoy The Lobster, but I enjoyed the hell out of this. It was the bomb diggity 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 diggity. I loved it. I'm just gonna give some love in the chat room to Michael B. He's always there for us. Thank you, Michael B. And
thank you, Michael.
And Dee Walker says she is enjoying this discussion. Baby, I am too. So I just want to tell you that. All right, so for a little film newsy news, let's talk about the Spirit Award nominations. Okay, let me say what I have to say about that.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Where do I begin? Okay, let me just start. Okay, so A24 led the nominations.
Yes.
They got a total of 12 nominations. They got 3 for If Beale Street Could Talk. They got 2 for Sorry to Bother You, and some other films that I don't even care about. No, I'm kidding.
8th grade? Come
I'm
on,
kidding.
8th grade?
I'm kidding. But I wanted to point that out. This was my problem with the Spirit Award nomination, and maybe you can shed some light on this for me.
Sure.
So what I found very interesting out of all the nominations that happened, I found it really odd that Russell Hornsby got no love. I found it really odd that Brian Tyree Henry got no love. And I found it particularly odd that Adam Driver, I'm sorry, let me blacktrack. I found it particularly odd that John David Washington was nominated for Best Actor for Monsters and Men and not for Black Klansman, in which he was the lead, and they nominated Adam Driver for the lead in Black Klansman. Now, first of all, isn't Black Klansman a studio film? Why is it in the independent? Why is it in the Film Independent Spirit Awards?
This is a good question. Just like Fox Searchlight. Why was Can You Ever Forgive Me there? I'm very confused.
So I'm gonna enlighten you. So I found, because I asked somebody this question last night. So I found out that a film, if the budget for the film is less than $20 million, then it can be in contention for a Film Independent Spirit Award.
Okay.
But it kind of depends on what year it is, because some years they acknowledge studio films and some years they don't. So this year, clearly, they did.
Yeah.
So I just had to.
The some of the nominations I loved. Some of the other ones I was kind of like, really?
Which ones did you love?
Well, John Cho for Searching.
Yes, I love that.
I was so excited about that. I love the fact that Elsie Fisher got some love for 8th grade.
Yes.
Both of us, I know we talked about this.
We love that, yeah.
As much as I disagree with most people about blind spotting, I was very happy that he did get some love for that.
W. Diggs got some love for that. Raphael Cassell got some love for it as well.
Yes,
his co-star.
I was very happy. I was shocked shocked that there was no Black Klansman for director. I was shocked that John David Washington was not in there at all. It was very weird that Adam Driver was the only person and the only award for Black Klansman at that entire thing. That was strange. I am happy for Boots Riley, on the other hand, for getting 2.
Sorry to bother you.
Yeah, yeah. So he got the first feature, and
he got. Let me tell. I can tell you, he got best director and best first feature.
Yeah. So I'm happy for him because I think he's a star in the making.
Yeah,
he is a star in the making.
So already there's a shakeup. So let's see what happens when they announce the SAG Awards are about to be announced, the Golden Globes are about to be announced, and the Critics' Choice Awards are all about to be announced in like 2 seconds. So let's see how all of those play out, because every award season it starts out and you begin to see the same names over and over and over again, and then there's a shakeup every once in a while.
Can I point out?
Yeah, of course.
How devastated I am that nobody is giving Hate You Give Love. I'm devastated by this.
But we talked about this earlier in the season. We talked about the fact that I had said earlier this year, we had talked about on Black Tomatoes, we had discussed about the fact that there were a lot of a lot of movies that were produced and released this year that dealt with that whole police brutality line of questioning. And I knew, and we said that it was going to be really interesting to see what rose to the crop and what didn't. I thought that John David was really good in Monsters and Men, and I really enjoyed that film. And I think I showed an interview that I did with him and Anthony Ramos earlier this year. So I knew that there was something about that just resonated for me. The Hate You Give is based on a book, and it's got strong performances in it. I mean, like
Russell Hornsby?
Like,
oh
I'm
my
so
God.
upset.
I know. I'm so upset about that.
I'm so upset about Russell Hornsby. I'm so upset about that. If Beale Street could talk, I'm upset over the fact that Brian. Please. But what I'm not, I could go on and on and on about what I am upset about. But what I'm not upset about is I'm glad that Regina Hall got some love for Support the Girls. Wasn't a big fan of that film, but she was freaking awesome in it. I knew Regina King was going to get some love. I said that. I said that long time ago. I knew if Beale Street Could Talk was going to rise above the crop. I could feel it coming because it's Barry Jenkins' follow-up film to Moonlight. So, there's that. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. Let's just say that. So. It's going to be a real interesting season. That's all I got to say about that.
Are you almost caught up? How many things you got left?
Things
like movies to see that you would
not that many.
You would feel. I only have about 4 or 5 left.
Yeah, I'm probably in the same ballpark.
Yeah,
probably in the same ballpark. Yeah, so I'm interested to see what's going to go down. All right, now for some little news happening. Rami Malek is receiving the Breakthrough Performance Award at the 30th Palm Springs Film Festival for Bohemian Rhapsody, which is happening in Palm Springs from January 3rd through the 14th. And Glenn Close is going to receive the Icon Award. Now, what I've noticed about the Palm Springs Festival is that whoever gets these awards usually goes on to win the Oscar. 9 times out of 10.
I mean, Rami was amazing
awesome
in that movie.
But this is really interesting because Glenn Close coming into the mix, because I have not seen The Wife.
Me either.
Very few people have seen The Wife. So I'm like, really? Okay. But everybody's talking about her in The Wife and saying that this might be the upset for the Best Actress category with Lady Gaga and some other people. So, again, it'll be real interesting to see how this plays out.
That category is so tough.
It's real interesting how it plays out. So I just want to flip through these films real quick when it comes to, because I think the SAG Awards is the next thing that's going to be announced, right? So Black Panther, I think the pros for Black Panther getting nominated in the picture category is that for the past 3 years there have been some films nominated with very diverse casts like Hidden Figures, Moonlight, Get Out, and Straight Outta Compton. So that's the good thing. The bad thing is it was released in February, the same time that we had Black Tomatoes on the air for the first time.
Right.
But it's been proven,
our first episode.
Right. It's been proven historically that when films are released in February or sometime in the spring, they oftentimes get forgotten about come award season. And with Marvel films and superhero films, they usually get relegated to like the special effects, category, costumes and all of that, which is kind of annoying, but it happens all the time. The only time that it didn't get hurt a film didn't get hurt getting released in February was with not Black Klansman, Get Out.
Get Out, yeah.
So it'll be interesting. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, it's still in the conversation in a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had any major award release of the lists right yet, where a film like Black Panther would be part of it. So I think you'll be surprised. I think there's a big push for this. I think Disney's putting their marketing dollars behind it.
Well, and I haven't seen a screener for it though. I've gotten screeners for everything else.
Disney hasn't sent a screener for anything. Have you gotten a screener for any Disney movie?
No.
They never do. Because what they do is they're such a household name and their movies stand out that they don't feel the need that they have to do it. It's weird. I mean, I got a pin for an Incredibles. I got the soundtrack for Incredibles. I didn't get the Incredibles screener.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. But, I mean, I think, I would like to see, personally, for Black Panther, I would like to see a Best Picture nomination, a Best Director nomination for Ryan Coogler, and maybe one of the other special effects awards. But those are the ones, like, realistically. Like, would I really want to see Chadwick Boseman getting a nomination? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not.
That sucks. Okay. Let's talk about some other ones that we haven't talked about on this show. Let's talk about Roma. Did you see Roma?
Yes, I did.
So I feel like for SAG, the pro thing is that SAG voters never shy away from a black and white movie. They love black and white movies. And they love Netflix movies because everybody streams Netflix movies. I think the downside may be the absence of star power in this film may deter voters away from it. But the only non-English language film to be nominated in a category like this was Life is Beautiful, and that was 20 years ago.
Yep. So. And I think people are comparing this movie to that movie quite a bit. Without going into feelings about the film itself, I want to, I do agree with the argument that many people have been making that they should put this in the foreign film category. And especially with the conversation about people watching award shows and all that stuff, because I don't feel like Roma has mainstream appeal. Okay.
I disagree with that. But we'll talk about it later when we talk about Roma.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up one more as we're talking about SAG nominations, because of all the other films we've discussed them ad nauseum on this show already. But I want to talk about this film called Weisz.
Oh, yes.
I think the pro for this is that Adam McKay's last film, The Big Short, also starred Christian Bale and Steve Carell, and it was nominated. I also think that it has a host of really great character actors: Sam Rockwell, Jesse Plemons, Eddie Marsan, Bill Camp, and Allison Pill. So that's the pro side. I think the con side is that ain't nobody seen the film yet.
Yeah.
And it's debuting late in the game, which makes it a liability, don't you think?
Yes. So this is very similar to what happened last year with Hostels, and also I feel Molly's Game. I think
Molly's Game. Yeah,
I feel like they happened very late. There was just like one screening, and this movie just did its first press screening Saturday, and there's another one Monday, and there's going to be a bunch of them coming up in the next week or two. But yeah, I'm a little worried about being this late in the game, and also I want to point out that it's also Annapurna. And Annapurna has, first of all, they have issues of last couple of weeks, I get maybe even a month at this point, that they've had a whole shakeup over there. They had problems with money, and they have a lot of movies. So your movie, If Beale Street Could Talk, is through them. There's a Nicole Kidman movie called Destroyer that's through them. Sorry to Bother You is through them, and then Weisz. And I think for a very small studio, they're going to have to decide where they want to put those award dollars behind and what they want to go after. From what I heard about this movie, from my own personal opinion on this movie, I am super duper excited. I love the Big Short so much. I felt like it got no love last year. I'm really, really excited about this movie. I can't wait to see it this week.
Okay, cool. So in other news, my girl Tika Sumpter, who I saw last night.
Yeah, she saw her last night.
That's my girl.
She was just chilling.
I love her. She is producing and starring in a Robin Hood drama called Traitor for HBO. And Traitor is a contemporary reimagining of the Robin Hood saga told through the perspective of a half Nigerian, half American black female. I can't pronounce her name just yet, so I'm not going to butcher it. But the role may or may not be played by Tika. And this young lady is an investing wonderkin and trading forecast prodigy on Wall Street. So I'm looking forward to that. Aisha Tyler is set to direct Vigilante, a female-themed thriller scripted by Erwin Winkler and Jose Ruiz Sanchez. So I'm looking forward to that.
What's it called?
Vigilante.
It's interesting. There's a movie that came out that never went anywhere, unfortunately, with Olivia Wilde called A Vigilante.
Oh, maybe it might be the same film.
That played in South by Southwest.
Oh.
So, I don't know.
See.
It was weird when I heard that. I'm like, what?
Oh, well, this one is the journey of a young woman who, after suffering a brutal attack, channels her anger and her grief into protecting others. The film shines a light...
Exact same movie.
Yeah, the film shines a light on shining spotlight on a cross-section of survivors whose voices have been dulled or silenced by societal complacency and indifference.
Same exact movie.
Okay.
That's so weird.
I know, right? Also is a remake of Clueless, which has Girls Trip writer Tracy Oliver, and she's also producing it. And for those of you that don't know, or maybe you do know, I'm a huge fan of Jane Austen. So I love the original Clueless because it was based on a Jane Austen novel. So we'll see. Some things I feel like you need to just leave them alone, and I feel like that's one of them. But never say never. Never say never. Never say never. And then we had a death this week, unfortunately. William Goldman, who was 87. He was a very famous, very well-loved, what's the word I'm looking for? Well-loved and highly respected and award-winning screenwriter. He wrote Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Marathon Man, All the President's Men, and The Princess Bride, to name a few. All right. Now, I just want to run through these real quick because we're running short on time. But Philadelphia is celebrating its 25-year anniversary. It was nominated. It was directed by Jonathan Demme, starred Denzel Washington, Tom Hanks, and Chandra Wilson. This was her first movie ever in life. It was her first movie. She had a really small, like if you blink, you'll miss her. But you can definitely tell it's Chandra Wilson. And this was one of the first movies that ever put a spotlight on the AIDS epidemic in Hollywood. It was a huge movie. It was the beginning of a streak for Tom Hanks winning Oscars, because I think he won this and then he won for Forrest Gump the year after, right behind it. So he won back-to-back Oscars.
Apollo 13 after that.
Yeah, so he had a nice little streak after this. But I just wanted to pay homage to Philadelphia for their 25th anniversary. And then the streaming pick of the week, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. It's on Netflix. It's called The Outlaw King.
Well, this is all you have to say about it. Chris Pine's penis.
Yep, that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
frontal nudity, and that is
right.
it. So, oh my goodness, we flew through this show today, Jack.
We did.
So next week, Scott Mendelson, our fellow.
Next week we're not going to be here.
No,
right?
that's right. Next week. Sorry, my bad. So next week, y'all, we will not be here because we're going to be celebrating Thanksgiving and having turkey and all that. But we will be back the following week, which is December 2nd. So make a note, Black Tomatoes will not be on the air next Sunday. I might throw some stuff throughout the week to pepper it that y'all can check out that's on the Black Hollywood Live channel. But me and Scott will not be here live talking about movies next week. No. So having said that, episode 39, which will be on December 2nd, we'll talk about Creed 2. We'll talk about Robin Hood. We'll talk about if Beale Street could talk a little bit more. And we'll be joined by our colleague and guest co-host, Scott Mendelson.
Very nice.
Cool. All right. Well, that
was it. Thank you very much. This was a wonderful episode.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you approved.
Yes, I do.
So I am your host, Carla Renata. You can find me across all social media platforms at the Curvy Critic. I also co-host I can't talk today. I also co-host the General Hospital Report, or the after show at AfterBuzz TV right after this at 6 o'clock. And on Monday, join me at AfterBuzz TV for the finale of season 27 of Dancing with the Stars. And as always, you can see all of my reviews of all the films we talk about right here at Black Tomatoes on the Curvy Critic website.
And you can find me at WeLiveEntertainment.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the other Scott M. And I do 2 other shows here on the Popcorn Talk Network. So actually not on Black Hollywood Live, but on the Popcorn Talk Network. And that is Meet the Movie Press, 9 a.m. on Friday. And of course, our organization show, which is LAOFCS Weekly, which is at 11 a.m. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much, everyone, for supporting this show.
Yes.
It is so incredibly important. And, we need to keep having conversations like we did today. It's so important to hear different opinions from different viewpoints. I can't tell you how important this network is, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, listen to that commercial break from Scott Menzel on Black Hollywood Live. Well, thank you, Scott
You're
Menzel.
welcome.
Well, all right, guys, we will not be here on next week, but we will be back on December 2nd. So until then, love, peace, and hair grease, and see you then. Bye.
Adios.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood Redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.